Okay, fellas, just a quick thing. So B-Sides is just around the corner. I believe it's November 12th. A couple of people from this group are going to go there. So if you haven't heard about it, it's I think bsides.to.ca. I'm not a Greek Hawks. So yeah, and join our Slack to get more updates and bond with people. And we're going to create a pretty large group on there. So you guys ready? We have the screen. Is it working?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Definitely. Okay, we don't have to.
The cable, move the cable. Connection.
Woo!
Right.
Here's Kevin on geofencing.
Why your music? Okay. We will just. How do you do that? Okay. All right, round two. Hi, everybody. My name is Pete. This is
Kevin. I'll hold this. We're working in here. So you can talk if you want.
okay, fine. So we're going to present on geofence monitoring. Basically, what we're trying to accomplish here is we're using recon to protect your assets against potential risks and threats through automation. A little bit about myself. I said my name. I currently work at TELUS for intelligent analysis. Basically, I take logs and some analytics and I connect the dots and try to put a story out of it and try to make it relevant to a customer. And this is Kevin.
My name is Kevin Kinsella. I have a counterintelligence background. I specialize in the stuff that you guys are actually asking about, behavioral analytics, using multi-channels to create threat profiles and catch the bad guy. And we specialize in people that are trained to be hidden, so it's not the average threat.
So just first off, if you're looking to expect shells and all the nice hacking stuff, you're in the wrong place. This isn't what's going to happen today. Our scope is a little bit different, and it's basically in the when you look at your steps or your kill chain or your incident response and your, I think it's step 2, I think it is, or number 1, I think it's 2. Your recon is your biggest thing, and not a lot of talk is focused on recon. And what we try to get out of this here is, a planned event, protest, or demonstration. A really good example of this is when there was TransCanada Pipeline and Anonymous. Those two have a really big history. And back when that was with the Koch brothers and all these protests, there are actual flyers out there that would be posted, and they would say, "Bring everybody, bring anybody, go on down and go to your MP's office, run into meetings, break it open, protest, do something, say something." So this is one of the things that we can be aware of is because people love to post stuff and want to get action. You're a little bit ahead of the game with grabbing things like a planned event, protest, or demonstration. Terrorist, public safety, criminal, suspicious activity, disaster and hazards are also included, because again, if you're safe for public transit, you have a gas leak, or there's a bomb or something, or a terrorist, or an attack planned. Again, people love to put that stuff out there, and You can monitor your buses or the city or different areas and try to use that to your advantage so you know ahead of time because you may not know something. Okay. Leaked information, fraud and loss prevention, business health. That also ties in with leaked information. Let's talk about a motive. If you're say that you're an investor and you're into, I don't know, natural resources, mineral mining or gas or whatever it is, and your company starts tanking, right? Your profits start going down. Now you may not tell your IT company or whoever you're trying to have somebody look at your stuff and say that, but I'm pretty sure that in the background somewhere, if we find an article or there's an article published that some other source says that X company has now lost 37% of their profit, or their stocks have dropped. That's a lot of money for investors. That gives them motive to go in and attack them or do damage to them. Fraud and loss prevention. I think you can give a good example of workers' compensation, right?
Yep, so you can use this for doing different types of claim investigations. A lot of organizations, insurance companies, go to social media right away. That's their first time. They don't want to hire an investigator. It's expensive to follow you around to see, right? So the first step they usually do is go right to social media. You would be amazed. We have lots of cases where people have done crazy things like video their crime and like to publicize it, right? So from a loss prevention, this is really good for tag teams or organized crime where you're having an insider threat, like an employee that is teaming up with an external threat that are targeting you for whatever product or services that you have. And it can be a physical product like clothes, it can be transportation, airlines, gas, fuel, whatever you think is valuable and people want it, they will plan for it. So using this type of technology, you can geomap all your locations. So your warehouse, right? You can look at that to see if there's any communications. And I'm going to give you a very simple example for terrorism. You're watching sports, we put this on around the whole arena, and we're looking for, I got the bomb truck, I'm driving up to the gateway now, I'll meet you for coffee, and we'll detonate the bomb when we get there after our coffee. Now this is a very simple, they don't use that, they use lots of code words, language, linguistics, and what we do is we take little pieces of information and put it together. So normally you guys are looking at information from a network. We actually look at all different vectors, from social media to what you're posting, your linguistic language, how to use deception detection and that. Where do you go from point A to point B? How do you communicate? Then we create threat maps. And then we correlate using predictive analytics, a whole bunch of mathematics, psychology to come up with a threat profile.
All right. So what is geofencing? Geofencing is the use of GPS or RFID technology to create a virtual geographic boundary, enabling software to trigger a response when a mobile device enters or leaves a particular area. Some of these tools you may or may not be familiar with already. Anybody know Recon NG at all? Yeah? Creepy? Or Creepy? Yeah. Yeah, you know it. And my personal favorite is Montego. Yeah, good stuff.
I like the first button on it. It's like company stalker, right? So you can get an idea of what Montego about, right? So
Plus one.
So here's a test. And how I got to this test was, you'll laugh at this, I watch way too much Blacklist, way too much. That's quite according to people. And I tinkered around with the Recon NG, and that's, it's great, but I also was not tinkering with Montego. And I wanted to at least come up with something that I could find a use for and kind of build on it because it had so many cool things in there, but you know, you don't know what you're doing half the time, and you get some results, and it's okay, but you have to have a purpose. And so when I was in there one day, I came across this thing where I could, because I was looking for stuff, and I came across this entity here. It's called a circular area somewhere on Earth, and it gave you the parameters were some coordinates and a range, just like with Recon NG, right? You have to give it longitude, latitude, and a radius. So I'm like, okay, well that's kind of cool. So I went on I used Google Maps and picked out some areas, and I'm like, well that's nice. What else can it do? And gave me some tweets. I started, doing things, just something simple, and I wanted to see how accurate it was. So here's a test. One of the places that I was looking up one day was, I think this is what it was. What was it? Portland, right, Portland. I was looking at top worst cities that stuff could happen, kidnapping, whatever it was. And Portland came up. It was like one of the 10. And so I plugged in the coordinates and I just ran it once. And I got some hits. Like fires, dumpings, suspicious people, unwanted people, thefts. What else was here? For Toronto, because I thought, well, what's in Toronto? There was a pot rally, and that's interesting because with a demonstration, you don't know how it's going to go. So having a little bit of an early warning, I caught that 2 days early, and watched it. Nothing really happened, but again, you get it so that it's a warning and something to kind of watch for.
And governments use this type of technology to monitor and watch certain groups that are considered terrorist groups but are domestic, right? So you'll know a couple, they'll be on the list, they'll be monitoring to see what type of activity, what are they communicating, are they thinking about going to a certain area that might be high secure, so that police need to put more resources in that area. There's also geomapping, where you can take this technology and the information that you get and then create it over a map. So now you can see in real time with criminal statistics from crime fighting from the police, right? So they release their data. You can take that data and overlay it, and then use technology like this in real time to correlate the information. So something like what you guys were talking about before. So if you have a certain type of behavior, you trigger, right? Now you need somebody to take a look at that. England is one of the forerunners on this type of technology. They caught the London bombing in 4 hours from the time it happened, the event happened. So their command and control, incident response is heavily integrated with technology and analytics. Just so you know, if you have 10,000 cameras, you have like 10 people here, you all have 2 sets of eyes, you can only see so much, right? So they use a lot of analytics, and the screens are alerted. So what they see are usually high activity.
So the second part of the test to me was, how accurate was this info? Because I can, put an area and find something interesting, but I can also drill down further and get the exact location, approximately, where somebody said something was. So Chicago was another one of those cities that happened to be on that big list. And I caught this tweet, and the tweet was, it says that it's always disconcerting when we first have to fly out over the lake to land. Okay, so that to me is a really good test because that means that she's on a plane. So let's see if this actually works. Come on. And sure enough, when I drove down a little bit more, there she is at O'Hare, and approximately this is where she tweeted that message. So I see that that's pretty accurate. It really gives you a good picture. Yes.
So does this rely on the tweet itself having metadata about GPS location?
Right. It does, and with our phones and technology, everything's tagged with, like I said, everything, pictures, your location, everything's tagged with that kind of stuff, right?
You can scrape it though, like it is possible.
Well, we'll get to, that's an.
You mean like turning
different question.
GPS off on your phone, so
Yeah, or even before you
Whatever
upload a
it's
picture, you scrape off like the random.
Yeah, but that's that's a whole other thing. So that was a test, and I was pretty satisfied with it. But that's great. But I also wanted to do more. I wanted to find a way to automate this somehow, and make it repeatable and usable. So with some scripting that was already in there, Maltego comes with some really basic stuff, and I'm not a scripter or a programmer by any means. And let me just bring it up here. So
if you know how to do some really cool stuff, Peter'd like to talk to you.
thanks, guys. A really simple machine, and this is the bare minimum that's actually in Maltego. So you can run a machine once or process once, and that's it. But if you want to automate it, it needs only one thing and one thing only, and that's a timer. And the timer is just on timer, and you give it a value, and it's in seconds. And then that's for how often would you want to run this, it's called a machine. And then you have to give it an entity, and the entity is what I showed you before, which is this area circular tweets. So whatever I go and I pull from the panel as an entity, that's what I run it on, and as often as I wish. So that's pretty basic. Flipping back and forth here. So next. Okay. So I had to think of some things. In order for this machine to run and make it usable, I had to come up with some parts on top of the simple machine. So you had a 1 part perpetual time parameter, which is the on timer. You had 1 part a max timer, 3 part bookmark timers, 3 parts colors of timers, 2 entities, and a garbage collector. And I'll explain that to you in a second. Let me just show you this. That's great. That's not what I wanted.
So
Oh. Is that showing now?
It's showing your last.
But it's not showing this? Okay. I'm on Montego, but it's showing you PowerPoint.
it's full screen mode.
Okay, how do I get out of this? Okay. No? Anybody know? Is that the trackpad? The trackpad. No, yeah. There we go. Okay. Okay, let me show you this. I'll show it to you in the. Sorry guys, 1 second. And here. Okay. let's break this out of it. You have to start somewhere. So I gave it a few rules. I'm going to have it monitor, see the maximum time when I'm going to do some looking around is about 5 hours. That's the maximum that I want to have these entities stick around for. I'm going to have this thing pulled every hour, just to monitor. And what I want to do though is, that's fine, it'll go and pull things, but we have to talk about some management, right? So I have these other timers here, and timers basically is something called bookmarks, and you'll see them in the columns in a second. When I first get them, they're one color. When they kind of go around for a little bit, let's say, I think in the first few minutes, in the first 1.5 hours, it's going to be yellow. And then when it's about the 3 hour mark, it's blue. When it first comes out, it'll be red. So then I can see and get an idea of when something came out, and I can prioritize after, like there, because all I'm going to see is a bunch of tweets, and I'm not going to know which one was where when. And to kind of help out with the clutter, at the end of the 5 hour, at the end, which is the 5 hours, which is the garbage collection, I'm going to delete whatever has been there for 4 or 5 hours. And what it looks like is something like this. I can find it. That's what it looks like. A lot of stuff. And it's hard to go through. I think I can make this bigger, can I? So the columns, as I was saying, is red, blue, and yellow. The wrong one. Here it is. Red, blue, and yellow. And these were pulled every hour, and it follows the rules of 1.5 hours, 3 hours, and then 5 hours for blue. Now let's apply this to an actual cause. Let's take, again, subways or the TTC, right? That's a good one. You know, what I have is I have 5 stations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6 stations in one hospital. But I've got 6 stations. And I'm watching those because I'm the TPC and I want to know what's going on because I know that there are threats. There's been threats in London, there have been threats in Paris. So I'm a little paranoid and I want to be on top of the game. As we all know, last week there was an incident and I was watching this and I caught it. That's what it pulled. And it can do it before the news gets out because people react faster, right?
Active shooters, parents that are in school, you can put this around the school and get a lot of intelligence coming in and out of that area if there was an active shooter incident. Usually they close down the communications, right? So as parents, you're very worried about your child. It could be locked down, right? And the only thing they have is their phones. So they start texting and tweeting and all sorts. So you can get a lot of intelligence and photos. So now you can do photo analysis to take a look at angles, shadows, what's in the background, you know, all sorts of things to get more physical intelligence of the environment that you're going to be dealing with. And just to let you know, this is like intrusion detection. So you're taking a lot of information, a lot of noise in chatter world and filtering it so you get the most important intelligence. Another problem with this is intelligence decay. So you have to verify the source. Is it good? Is the intelligence good? How long has the intelligence been out there? Because time decay really kills it in our industry.
So one way that we can validate that is if we see tweets that are interesting. So on top of the flood of the police and the bomb ones, there's somebody here saying unconfirmed, but an onlooker said that there's a suspicious package at the police headquarters. Well, where were they when they said that? Were they 10 blocks away somewhere and they just kind of made it up or heard it from somebody else? Or were they actually there? So what we can do is we can select all and we can drill down a little bit.
And the nice thing about Motigo is it's a mapping as well. So you can use one tool where in the government or the Navy, for instance, is a really good example. When you do threat monitoring in the Navy, it's in 3 dimensions. So you are not thinking from a linear. You're looking at all the signal intelligence of the communications. You're looking at the ship. The ship sits on a surface of the water. You have submarines that can attack you from underneath the ship. So now you're looking at a 3-dimensional threat vectors and monitoring the asset, the ship, and all its people and communications on that, right? So plus the external. So this tool is really good because we can take bits of pieces of information and automatically pipe it in and start creating social graphs, intelligence, different types of modeling to get the picture that we need.
Okay, so let's
Do you
start
have
there.
a question?
Yeah,
Yes.
the tweets that you guys are, or the tweets that this program scrapes, are they public necessarily, or do you sometimes have access to, like, friends
So
and things?
in our company, we are a licensed private investigator. We have insurance, and yes, we do have access to restricted databases, and there's some that are paid. So you can go to a lot of the social media, and I'm going to talk to you about, you know, how police will use certain things to look at, right? They go to the front end a lot of the times, so they have to follow all the privacy, right, that Facebook has. So if I'm not your friend, it's hard for me to look to see if you're doing crime or whatever, right? So what we do is we talk to Facebook and we say, we want your API. Your API gives a lot of more information than the public side, like GPS location, where the person logged in, all the metadata, all this kind of stuff, right? Now you pay for that. So we have clients that pay us to do this for them, and we leverage that, right? Now, since the privacy and a lot of the governments and everyone getting together talking about it, they're really restricting that now. So now what they're doing is giving you levels. For level 1, for 50 grand a year, we'll give you our basic marketing database. Because basically what Facebook is in selling the information business. They're not really a social network to let's help you and all this stuff. They sell their analytics to marketing companies so they can better target your person. And it's actually scary because I'm a good security guy, I'm not a good CPO, and I talk to marketing consultants and I see the relationship. When they talk to me about profiles, who's your perfect client, and they go through their little exercise, I'm like, that's intelligence. That's what I do, right?
So do you need a license, or do you need like some sort of regulatory
Yes.
approval before
Yes.
you can purchase one of these things?
Oh, this stuff? No, this is hacking. This is hacking
No, sorry, I
tools,
mean, like,
right?
let's-
So if you want to get access to a restricted database,
Yeah.
then you have to apply. The RCMP comes and checks you out, and then they give you access. It's behavior audited every month. So for instance, let's look at the motor vehicles. So it's a database I have access to. I can't look up my friends or my family, I'll get in serious trouble, right? It's meant for screening. So we screen for companies, drivers, all this kind of stuff, right? So we look for that. But to answer your question, yes,
So
you
not
need a
just any old
license.
joke and like pay 50,000 grand, or sorry, pay 50 grand, you get like all this data.
If any old Joe has 50 grand, I won't talk to that guy.
And there's certain technologies you need to have a license from the RCMP when we
Yeah.
start getting into signal intelligence and broadcasting and what's allowed, what's not allowed, and all that kind of stuff. But that's outside the scope of this. We wanted to make it really simple, to sort of give you an idea that if you're an enterprise and you have 40,000 employees, you're all around the world, you have call centers, and you have to worry about external threats and internal threats, and you need to profile that. that this is one way that you can do this on the fly dynamically, but it takes some implementation. As you can see, it's not perfect, right? There are commercial applications that do this, but they charge you an arm and a leg to do it, and it's like big analytic people. You know, I can give you some names if you want. They're mostly in the marketing side. They're just breaking into enforcement now. So now they're offering all their services to enforcement, right? So you've seen shows like Hunted, right? The UK version and all that kind of stuff. So they use all open source intelligence to do that. And if you've ever seen the US one, I've done work for the US military. I know how they don't like to share. So it takes time to get a warrant. They don't just click a button and say, guess what? We get access to all the cameras and we're now following the guy's license plate. That would take a week to do, right? So it's a show. They need to show it in 20 minutes, right? It's like CSI. Everyone asks me about forensics. And I'm like, CSIs are not detectives. They don't solve crimes. They do an analysis and they give you a report, right? So, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. So to conclude, that where that tweet was that we're looking at that talked about beyond lookers drilling down, it was around at Young College, and it's smart enough to kind of correlate everything and tie it to that GPS because that's the location because that's where the police headquarters are.
To give you one outside too, we had a case, domestic. So we put the husband up. We knew his girlfriend. We didn't know where they were meeting. We put the girlfriend up, the husband, bang. Within 24 hours, we got the girlfriend's location. We sent the investigator to do some surveillance, and we caught him. And we used this. So it was like, hey, honey, my wife's gone to China. I see you at 6 p.m. whatever. Your response back was yes, and blah blah blah. Right. So you can see how that can be leveraged. Right.
So again, just quickly for the TPC example, the threats that can happen related are hosted in international events, terror threats, protest riots, demonstrations, environmental, construction, gas leaks, etc. Emergency vehicles, fires, and some that are not listed. There are many more. Challenges and limitations. And this one, I bust my head weekly on this thing because it drives me nuts. It's not perfect. There is a lot of duplication of tweets after every garbage collection. So it goes through the 5-hour cycle, and then it comes and grabs them again. So looking through the stuff, I find tweets that are from half a week ago or maybe a week ago. That burns me. I'm looking at within Motigo, there are some settings that you can say, okay, grab the maximum or the minimum is a day ago. That's it. I don't want anything longer than that. It'll grab it, but when it does it again, it'll grab everything else that was longer until I shut it down and then start it again. There needs to be a target or goal. It's, when I first started looking at this project and trying to make sense of it, I was everywhere. I was all over the place. Okay, I'm gonna watch this place and that place and that place and that place. And you'll get disappointed pretty fast because you don't have a reason to do it. If you have a reason, then you can go and look and find what you want. Without it, you're going to be disappointed and so much data, you're just going to walk away from it. Filtering and keywords. I would love, so this is the community edition, and the limitation is for every poll that you do, it is 12 results can come back with every poll. If you have the actual license, it goes from 12, 50 to 55 to 10,000. You have to watch and see how many it pulls every time, and what I try to do with filtering and keywords is every time that I do a poll, I'm only interested in just these words like fire or bomb or whatever I'm trying to protect that will give me keywords. There isn't such a thing as of yet that I've found, but I'm still looking into it. There are some of the frameworks that may be able to help me out, such as Canary. You cannot query all the things, sadly. There is a limit. Twitter has a limit of, oh, I forget the exact number, but it's within 15 minutes. And if you pull more within 15 minutes, let's say it's 50, it'll start blocking you, and it'll say, okay, wait just 5 minutes, and it'll do it again, and then try again, and then that kind of messes things up, because if you have, say, a customer with multiple sites, you now have to say, okay, well, I can do, say, out of 30, I'll do 4 at a time if it'll let me, and then I'm gonna space it out over an hour and see what can fit and what can't fit. You can spend money, and I just found out that there's a paid subscription that you can do, kind of like with the Pastebin, where if you pay, I don't know, like $1 or something, whatever it is, if you could scrape, I think it's anything after a second or more, you could scrape your heart's content. But in this case, with either version, you cannot query all the things, which makes me sad. Right? That's how it goes.
And I gotta mention about filtering and keywords is really important. Usually they have actually separate systems to do that. So they bring in the collection, right? So the first step is collecting the information to turn into intelligence, right? So when you do filtering and keywords, linguistics plays a role. Culture, how cultures use language. So different culture uses language differently, so perception is different. Now, from an enforcement standpoint, there are some words that are not transferable to other language. So you'll notice people chatting and then they'll say bomb, and then back to chatting, because there's no word for bomb in their language, right? Like in Israel, I think there's no word for past tense in their language, right? So they have other ways of describing time as it progresses, where English, we have the past tense, right? So when you set that up, you have to take a look at what you're trying to filter, what you're trying to keywords. So what are the important words that you need to monitor? So if we're in a corporate in a world, it might be something that deals with their assets, their locations, their staff, their people. What do they have, right? Like Peter said, there's a disaster, Katrina, no one can get to work. FEMA couldn't get water to them. They actually had to go to, I think it was Walmart. So Walmart's incident plan is better than the federal government's and their logistics and managing their supply chains. They basically help the government out. That's pathetic, right? So as far as I know, Walmart doesn't have a field full of choppers that can, at a moment's notice, go and deliver lots of things like the government can, right? And I have lots of experience in the Coast Guard and all sorts of things. So just the last thing.
Yeah, just last thing. So the other just last point is that I also try to make it very flexible. So as I said earlier, I had this thing of 5 hours and 1.5 hours, but say that there's an event going on, or Black Friday, or you're worried about Walmart tramples, or the Olympics, or something happening. You can tailor this and say, okay, well now I want to change that and change the polling so it gets faster polling, and you can keep on top of it, and then you still have your color coordinates, so you know again what's been pulled and what's not, and what's prioritized and what's pulled. Yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions at all, guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Super.
Okay.
Okay.
So other than this Martigo, what are the other tools you are using for the investigation? Is it just the Martigo or any other tools for investigation?
Well, for validation, you can go on to, you would go and follow the link itself for Twitter. There's an option for that to say view tweet. There's other stuff. It depends on what it is. News sources as well is another thing, just to kind of see if there's anything else going on. Darknet is always another one.
Not the sources inside the Martigo.
Yeah.
Other than Martigo, is there any other similar tools like
competition to Motigo?
Oh, well, there's as I said earlier, there's Creepy, ReconNG, And somebody will be very excited when I say this. Buscador. Buscador is a whole ISO that's geared just for recon stuff. Anything.
And then there's big commercial applications that you can buy, like digital stakeout. So they monitor all like 15 different social media platforms. They have an enforcement arm. You pay something like 10 grand a month, and then you can go and set up geofences, keyword searching, maps, and stuff like that.
Second one. So in any of the tools, it's like, for example, if you are using like firewall safety or any Facebook safety, if you're monitoring for a keyword, that is possible. It's like if you are bumping into the firewalls and doing search in real time, right? So for example, the event passed on. So for example, you are getting a hit. It's like you are being alerted for that event after 5 hours or a day. So how you go back in the time and do the search? It's like, is it possible?
So I guess if you collect the information, then you can always go back through the timeline and the dates and find out what tweeted, right?
I think you have to actually go back to the source of the window and see what else, right?
The number of tweets or even the data that is
So you want to know, like,
collected in
you
a
collect
day.
data from Monday to Friday, you go back to Monday and look at it after Friday.
You can save your data and like your graphs and go do that. But there's better tools out there. I think it's Twitbot, I think it is, that you can put in. So when you find the hashtag or the owner or the author, you can use Twitbot. It'll grab all the tweets from that account, everything, and then you can sort that through there.
And one last thing before you guys go, you're gonna love it. If you're a day trader, if you like to trade things, you can use this like stock tweet. And now you can start monitoring who's trading what and who are they talking about and what's going on and all sorts of things. And we did a demo for a stock house and it's amazing. Right? So they were like, holy smokes, right? And guess who talks? So it's not the day traders. If I take you down to Bay King right now and set this baby up, you're gonna see all the stock brokers. They love talking on the wire, which makes them feel big with their little thing, and they start tweeting, "Oh, I got an 8 million IBM job, blah blah blah," and all this stuff. It's so amazing.
I think there was one more question.
Yes, there's more comment to your Walmart thing. One of the business stats is that September 11th, unfortunately, they bought all the flags in the U.S. across the board, so that no one on September 12th that came on could sell them because they had an algorithm that understood the stock and did puts all the degree that. So they've been doing this for a while. I mean, smaller version of it. So yeah, only people.
Yeah.
Well, thanks guys again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for showing up, and we'll see you next month. One quick thing. One very quick thing.
Steve and I are from the Electromech tribe, and we've been kind of doing our own thing and not really waiting for them to catch up. So what we've been working on is basically anything that deals with like hardware, electronics, and whatnot. And we want anyone who's interested in learning the electronic side of things or kind of like computer hardware level. So we're working on 2 projects currently. The Units project, which is the actuators, linear actuators, open source linear actuators.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like 3D printed, actuators here, and cuts down the cost of actuators. Pretty cool. The second project that we're working on is EMP resistant Raspberry Pi. So the notion is, if for some reason some EMP threat springs up, possibly from North Korea, possibly not, that your Raspberry Pi will still be able to operate under that kind of environment. And we will also want to expand that to like other platforms like phones, other embedded devices, regular PCs, laptops.
Towers, whatever you need.
Yeah. Routers. Right, that's all.
Thank you.
Yeah.